Kristen Jacobson.
Hey everybody, I'm Kristen, the anxiety therapist. Thanks for checking out my video podcast this week. Today I want to talk about a topic called hedonic adaptation, or sometimes referred to as the hedonic treadmill. This is not to be confused with hedonism. Basically, this is a concept that was researched in the 70s, and it's found that most people sort of have this happiness set point. So think about it like your happiness baseline, right? This sort of straight line that you kind of always return back to. So we have positive experiences that, bring our happiness levels up. We have negative experiences that bring our happiness levels down, but then we always sort of return to that baseline. Obviously, there are other situations or circumstances such as depression, anxiety, other mental health concerns that interferes with this. But I'm just talking about more of a general concept around happiness and positive psychology. So if you think about that, we have these positive experiences and negative experiences, but once the novelty of it wears off, we sort of come back to baseline and maintain that equilibrium. So during this research, they studied people who had won the lottery, they studied people who had been in terrible car accidents and, had a limb amputated. And in all of these situations, over time, people sort of return to that happiness set point. And this is what is referred to as hedonic adaptation, or sometimes it can feel like, they use the metaphor of a treadmill because it can kind of feel like you're just constantly moving, but not really getting anywhere. But I think this does a lot to explain why we as a society struggle so much with happiness. And, a lot of the clients I work with specifically, they'll have a goal and then they'll reach that goal and then they return to the happiness set point and it's sort of on to the next goal. So that goal doesn't really change their lives in the way that they had hoped. It might bring them some temporary feelings of accomplishment or achievement, but ultimately they're going to go back to that baseline. So what do we do with this information? It's important to note that there is a difference between pleasures and gratifications. So when we're thinking about pleasures, these are going to be more so kind of like material things or things that give us like a quick boost of happiness. And that could be buying a new pair of shoes. It could be buying the car that you've been saving up for a while. It can be getting a nice cup of coffee. It can be anything big or small that gives you sort of that instant hit of happiness, and those chemicals and hormones and neurotransmitters get released in your brain. But then once that wears off, you're kind of back to baseline. Gratifications, on the other hand, these take a little bit more work and they're more involved, but they are more meaningful in nature and kind of put you into somewhat of a state of flow. So gratifications would be things like engaging in something artistic. So maybe painting or drawing if you're into that. It could be learning a skill like karate or yoga. It could be practicing meditation or mindfulness. And it's really something that is rooted in sort of more meaning and is more in alignment with your values versus these pleasures in life that are a bit more fleeting and give us sort of that quick hit. So how much control do we have over our happiness set point, or this hedonic adaptation? The research shows that roughly like 30 to 50% come from genetics. So that's pretty fixed, right? We tend to be predisposed to certain temperament or disposition in terms of our happiness or how much we experience positive emotions. So that's pretty fixed, right? Genetics or biology is something that we don't have a lot of control to change. There's a very small piece that is circumstantial. So this could relate to the area in which we live. It could relate to natural disasters, just anything that is circumstantial, some of which we don't have control over, but some of which we do, right? We can often choose who we spend time with. We can choose whether to make a big adjustment or a big change in our lives regarding our job or where we live or things like that. So, to a certain degree, we have some control over our circumstances. And then that leaves roughly 40-ish% that we have pretty much complete control over. So that's good news, right? Because we can sort of be intentional about how to foster as much happiness as possible and shift that set point up a little bit. And in doing that, what we pay attention to grows. So in sort of putting that energy and intention into those more positive experiences, those experiences that are more gratifying versus pleasurable, then we can create this situation in which we don't have to rely on these novel, short-lived experiences to give us those bouts of happiness that are really fleeting in the long term. So some of the ways to do this is to really practice gratitude and even keep a gratitude journal each night where you're being very intentional and deliberate about reflecting on the positive things that have happened that day. And it doesn't have to be big things, it could just be like, oh, I saw the first flower bloom for spring, or I got to work a little bit early because I hit all the green lights, and so I just started my day in a more relaxed state. It can be the smallest little minute part of your day that you're just being intentional about noticing because you might otherwise overlook it. Another thing you can do is practice small acts of kindness. So it always feels good. It always is sort of a happiness booster to do something kind for somebody else. And it's important to kind of keep a good mixture of both things that are pleasurable and things that are gratifying. So, you want to start forming habits or creating these hobbies that are very meaningful, but you also don't want to do the same thing over and over again. You want to make sure you keep a little bit of variety in there in terms of your hobbies so that there's not that loss of interest or the novelty of it wears off. And then, of course, you want to keep those pleasurable things that will give you just a quick boost throughout the day. So when it hits like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I start fading and I just get really tired. And so I'll often go down and make myself a cup of coffee. And that's sort of like this little burst of happiness. It's fleeting, but at least it gives me some joy in that moment. So I think this is just a nice kind of way to conceptualize how we look at joy and happiness. A lot of times we get caught in this idea that happiness is like a destination. Like, okay, once I get this thing, I will be happy. And it's really a fleeting emotion, just like anything else. So sadness, anger, all disappointment, all of those things are fleeting emotions that are part of the human experience. So happiness is not a destination, but we can do these small things that I mentioned in order to raise our happiness set point so that we are able to experience more of that emotion. So I hope this was helpful. I know I threw a lot at you, so let me know if you have any questions. I would love to hear about things that you guys do to increase your happiness set point, or maybe things that you recognize you might need to shift from watching this video and learning about it. So I hope you all have a great week, and I will see you next time.